just stay on here?
It's completely up to you. I mean, there is a delay on YouTube, but yeah, better off kind of I keep both windows open. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are we doing? This is Rich just checking in with you for a Monday check-in, but it's a Monday check-in with a difference. Okay, so over the course of the next couple of months, really, and probably beyond, we're going to be interviewing some of, let's say, the best students in the UK. I think I can say that. And tonight we have Anna. You all right, Anna? How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. You?
Yeah, very well. Thank you very much. Good. Thanks for being here today with us.
No problem.
So what we thought here at TT, obviously, these are very, very stressful times right now for obviously everybody in school, but particularly like GCSE years, year 12s and year 13s. But what we thought, we obviously, with all the YouTube videos, we're talking about how to study from home and what might happen with the exams. And we just felt that it was time to let's just take a shift of focus and have a look at another aspect and something that you guys do have to look forward to. And I know there's some uncertainty right now, but you can all look forward to going to university, to doing those courses that you're aiming to do. So that's what we're aiming to do for you guys, is to bring you just an insight really into the different types of courses that are out there, the different universities, and to get that information from route one, from the source, and that is from students who are there doing it at the moment. So as I mentioned, got Anna here tonight. Hello everybody who's in the YouTube chat. Do we have any budding physiotherapists with us, ladies and gents? Or anybody looking to do anything medical related? If it is not physiotherapy, what is it that you're interested in doing? Is it anything related? Just let us know in the chat. And there is a delay, so we'll wait for those to come through. So Anna, how are you doing? How are you coping with lockdown and stuff?
Yeah, it's been a bit weird. I'm guessing the same as everybody else, but I think good times ahead. So we've just got to keep going through probably a tough few months, and then hopefully we can all have a good summer and the rest of the year. And I'm hoping by the time all of you guys get to university, things should hopefully be more normal and a lot more face-to-face teaching and less Zoom calls and things like that.
Oh, yeah, I know it's been death by Zoom, hasn't it?
It has.
I think, it is tough. And I know, we speak to students on a daily basis who are really struggling with that kind of distance learning. And of course, that's what we're kind of set up here to do at TT. But I mean, how are your lecturers kind of dealing with it? Are you doing lots of Zoom, or are they just giving you guidance on other studies you can do and stuff like that?
So I think I'm quite lucky being in third year, because we had a lot of our face-to-face exams in second and first year. So this year it's been more like assignments and placements, which are obviously all going ahead as normal. So we've had small amounts of face-to-face teaching, and you kind of just get all your PPE on and stay in like your little bubbles. So we've still been able to go into university, but when things could have been online, they have been. So we've had a lot of lectures, seminars online, which, to be honest, in some ways it's quite similar to a lecture theatre, because you do just sit and watch a PowerPoint in the lecture hall, which is now just on Zoom. And there has still been a small amount of face-to-face. In terms of presentations, these have been done online. So we do like recordings with the kind of presentation in the background. And then you kind of get questioned on a Zoom call after. So it's just kind of adapting. It's different skills, and probably good skills that you can also use in the future that I'm sure I probably wouldn't have known if things had been normal. And like I said, placements have still gone ahead as normal. And again, it's just different circumstances, but I do think it prepares you more in certain ways to go out and get jobs. And like I said, a lot of job interviews are going to be online. So it is kind of preparing us in a different kind of way, which will probably be, things will be different probably for quite a while. So it's kind of prepared us well, I think, to go out into practice when we all graduate.
Yeah, I mean, that's really true, actually. I mean, you think like, there's been obviously, the real trials and tribulations throughout all this, but actually, the necessity's been the mother of invention in some ways, hasn't it? You think that, the good aspects, that people have been really innovative and doing things in slightly different ways, that will just carry on into the future. No longer will you have to spend kind of 200 quid on a train ticket from one end of the country to for a job interview. You can just do it over Zoom because people know how to do it now. So let's talk about you and your journey, if you don't mind, Anna.
Yeah, of course.
So if you don't mind, just give us a synopsis of what you studied at A level, what kind of led you into the kind of realms of physiotherapy and healthcare and stuff like that. What inspired you to get in there? And yeah, let's go with that. What A levels did you do, and what inspired you to go off and do physio?
Yeah, so I first had my interest in physio probably in about year 10 or 11, so quite young. I ruptured my ACL playing football, so I had quite a serious knee injury. And that's when I kind of got introduced to physio. Never really knew what a physio was until I actually needed one. And when I was having physio, I thought, oh, this is quite a good, I quite like this. I could imagine myself doing this. So I chose kind of, because when I was choosing my A levels, I was still not 100% sure that I wanted to do physio. So I chose psychology, English literature, and PE, just to kind of leave my options open. But I was at this point starting to edge more towards physio.
Okay.
Did my A levels, and it was kind of like when we started talking about UCAS and things like that. And I'd had a little bit of experience, which I really enjoyed, that I thought that physio was something that I was definitely really interested to go into. I applied. So in year 12 and 13, my first choice was Manchester Met. My second choice was Sheffield Hallam. And I had my heart set on Manchester Met. I really wanted to go. Went through all the interview process, got my offers, and then on results day, I didn't get the results I needed. I got BBC, which the entry requirements were ABB.
Right.
So obviously it was a bit of a panic on results day. I was like, what am I going to do? I got rejected from both of them. I had the option to go through clearing, but physiotherapy is very competitive. It's not like other courses where you can get through clearing very easily. So I just thought a gap year was probably going to be the best thing for me, and just kind of relook at my options. So I just spent a few weeks looking at kind of like foundation courses, looking at different courses. But I just realised that even when I didn't get in, I kind of wanted to do physio even more. So I was like, I'm definitely going to make sure I do it. So I looked at all my options, and I came to the conclusion that the best option was to just resit my PE level, which was a bit of a risk, because I thought if I don't get in again, then I'm kind of back to square one. But at this point, I also had some foundation courses applied for as well for physio. So I kind of applied for the universities again, and the foundation courses, and resat my A level in my gap year. And in this time, it kind of also made me realise that I don't want to go to Manchester Met anymore. Not that there was anything wrong with Manchester Met, but I just came to Sheffield for my interview and thought I actually really like it here. So then I put Sheffield as my first choice, and I got the grade I needed in my PE A level. So I came to Sheffield Hallam. So everything happens for a reason, I guess, if you look at it that way, that I got there in the end.
It's so true, isn't it? I think that, when students are choosing the universities by and large, and I was the same, it was a little while ago now, but, you look at these unis on paper, or you hear something about that university, or maybe you read that it's like the top one in the country for your course or something like that. And on paper, they look great. But I always say to students, like, choosing university is a bit like buying a new car or buying a house. Not that you kind of know what that feels like at 17 or 16, 17, but you just know, like, when you go there and you see the place and you get the vibe and you see the students and see the campus layout to campus, or even when you just meet the tutors, it could be just the smallest little thing, be like, actually, yeah, I think I could fit in here. And sometimes places aren't what you expect, and they surprise you.
Definitely. Yeah. I think it is just sometimes as well a gap year, because a lot of my friends went to university. Going and visiting them as well made me kind of realise more what was important to look for when looking at universities, which I didn't always know when I was kind of just, like you said, just flipping through pictures on the internet and kind of going for locations that I thought I would like. But until I actually went and properly looked, it did give me a better insight into kind of what I actually wanted from university. And maybe it was just that bit of time to have more so after I'd kind of done all my exams and had more time to think about it, I guess.
That's it. I mean, the big decisions to make, and also, like, when you're under pressure as well with your exams coming up, it is difficult. And those students like yourself who you can sometimes, students look at it like a gap year, almost like as and a reset, almost as like a failure in some respects. But you know what, as long as that path leads you to where you want to go, and it sounds like you've had the benefit of hindsight during that time as well, then that's great. So you're in Sheffield. So what was it then that kind of flipped you from Manchester to Sheffield? Can you pinpoint anything maybe?
Yeah, so I really like Sheffield that we've got the Peak District and the city. So we can like you can literally drive about 10 minutes and you're suddenly in like beautiful countryside, and it's really nice to go for walks. But then you've also kind of got the city side of things, so it does still feel like you're in a city. And I also really like in Sheffield that all the accommodation is walking distance. So the first year accommodation for Sheffield Hallam is all together, and you can walk to town, to university. And then your second and third year accommodation is like literally one big road. So it's called Eccleshall Road, and it's literally just all student area. And we've got like rows of shops, the university, again, town and walking distance. And I love the fact, like, I've not had to get a bus or a taxi in like the whole 3 years that I've lived here. We can walk everywhere, which is, you don't really kind of think about that when I was applying for uni, but now I'm here and I can literally walk to university, to town, to the shops. It's really nice. It is a really nice thing as a student to be able to do that. And yeah, I just thought Sheffield's a bit smaller, Manchester's a much bigger, seems a lot more of a bigger place, which for some people is amazing. But for me, I just like the kind of smaller feel to Sheffield, and everything's kind of just closer together. And everyone's really friendly as well. You can literally start a conversation with anyone, anywhere you go. You can bound to have a chat with somebody. So it's a really nice place. Really
I'm
nice.
biased. You can't go wrong up north. I'm biased.
Yeah. 100%.
That's it. I mean, we are getting some questions in on the YouTube channel, guys. I am reading those questions. I promise you I'll come back to those. So we're just kind of working our way through some of the big questions that kind of we want to ask all of our interviewees over the next month. So we talked about why you wanted to go to Sheffield, and we talked about why you wanted to do physio. How did you find like the application process, like the UCAS process? Was there anything that you would recommend or any advice you could give to students who are applying for physio?
Yeah, I just think with your personal statement, just really let your experience that you've had, if you've had any, I know how difficult it obviously is with COVID and everything else, and if you've managed to get any experience, but really talk about your experience. In my personal statement, I used an example of a patient, obviously not using names or kind of trusts for confidentiality, but just discussed a patient who I dealt with and kind of how physio really helped that patient. And they really like that, to see that you've actually learned from your experiences that you've had, and just kind of make that shine through, and all your kind of extracurricular things that you've done, and like how your subjects link to then going on and doing physio, and just kind of really like expand on those examples and always link it back to physio, and just remember what physio is, because in your interviews, that's what they really want to know, is that you actually understand what physiotherapy is, and how you've used your experiences in your A levels or your BTEC or whatever qualifications you're doing, how that's then going to link on to university. So I just think try and make that shine through as much in your personal statement. And they do ask you questions about your personal statement in your interview, so obviously just remember what you're putting down as well. There's always a good tip. And yeah, I think the UCAS application is, you put all your details in, don't you, and then you obviously have the personal statement side of it. And I think just take your time with it as well. Don't rush through it, and I'm sure your schools and colleges will give good references and things like that. So but I think the best tip is just to remember what you're putting on your personal statement, because that does come up in your interview quite a lot. So just be careful what you're putting down.
Yeah, I think one of the best piece of advice I heard from one of our brand ambassadors from last year was, in that respect, when you've got your final iteration and your UCAS form's gone off, you want to give that personal statement to like an auntie or an uncle or a cousin or somebody that has no idea what's in it, and then just say, ask me anything you want about it. And that way, you're kind of practicing, and maybe even curveball questions and they might send you. It's like, oh, you said you did this for 6 months. And like, oh, how did you feel at the end of it? Or what did you reflect on? It's like, just giving people that to do the practice with is a really good tip too. So let's talk about the course at uni then. So, I mean, I take it there's a national standard, isn't there? I think all courses are accredited. And who are they accredited to?
Yeah, so it's the Chartered Society of Physiotherapy. So like the CSP, we call it in university. So within that, you have to cover certain modules and you have to complete 1,000 hours over your 3 years on placement. So a good tip that I think is all universities will have to cover the same content. Obviously, the way they examine that is slightly different, like in different universities. But in terms of content, it is pretty much the same wherever you go. The only thing that will differ is your placement. So, for example, at Sheffield Hallam, in first year, we did a 4-week placement. And in second year, we did a 6-week and an 8-week. And then third year, we have 2 8-weeks. But obviously comparing the different universities have different kind of lengths. So I know like Nottingham University, they do 4-week placements. So it kind of varies in terms of like lengths of placements and locations. So that's kind of the thing that's different between the different universities. But in terms of the content, it's all pretty much the same wherever you go. But in Sheffield Hallam, we don't do any exams, any written exams. It's all practical based and assignment based and presentations, and then obviously your placements. So it depends what kind of learner you are. If you're somebody that is really good at written exams, then maybe look at a university that examines in that way. But if you're somebody that's more of a practical person like I am, then Sheffield Hallam suited me the way that they do their examination process. So it's always just worth looking into the kind of way that they do their exams, because it does vary between different universities.
Yeah, I mean, that's really important. Like, I think because it's such, a people-facing profession, and you're going to be dealing with patients day in, day out, and you're going to be getting your hands dirty, so to speak. And I think the more time, I would wager, the more time you get to spend on placement and with patients throughout your kind of university, your learning process, the more comfortable you'll be when you're actually kind of out in the big wide world and actually doing it for real. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. And the placements are really good. Whichever university you'll go to, you kind of like have to cover so like an inpatient, so kind of like ward-based hospital, you have to do an outpatient. So kind of like if you were to go with like knee injuries, shoulder injuries is the best, like you're not actually in hospital. And then you have to do a community as well, so like going to people's houses. So you kind of cover those areas whichever university you go to, and you just learn so much from your placements. It's kind of first year you're learning all your knowledge and it can be quite overwhelming, and then you go out on placement and you think, oh, that kind of makes sense now. It kind of all just clicks when you actually go and you deal with patients. And sometimes it is quite daunting because you think, oh my word, this is quite scary that I'm just in a hospital. But you're always with somebody else. You've always got your educator with you, and 99% of the time they're really nice and helpful as well, because not many people go into the profession not to want to help other people. So you're always surrounded by a nice team, and the placements are just amazing. I think that's definitely the best thing about the course, and that doesn't vary much from any uni you go to. So I wouldn't kind of worry about where you necessarily go to university, because the placements are just amazing, and that's where you do kind of do all your learning really. So they're really good.
I did see a question from somebody on YouTube talking about the intensity of the course. I mean, like kind of recent events aside, because obviously you're distance learning, but the first couple of years you were at Sheffield. Did you feel like it was intense? Do you feel like you were given a lot of work compared to A level? I mean, how did that transition kind of work out for you? How did you feel about like the workload and stuff?
It's just different. So first year it was a lot of practical exams, so it was just a different type of learning. Obviously A level, it's a lot of kind of going into an exam hall, sitting down and just kind of writing down everything you've revised for the past 2 years or year. Whereas all first year was all practical. So like an example of a practical exam would be, you would go into kind of like a clinic room, you would have a scenario. So for example, like for neuro, you might have somebody with like Parkinson's or MS, and it would be like a scenario. And then you would then have to talk through how you would deal with the patients, like your assessment, your treatment. And it is just like kind of like a conversation with your examiner. And then you have to do your handling on like a model who's just kind of like your course mate. So your first practical exam is quite pressurized, because obviously, unless I don't know many A levels where you have to kind of use those skills in that way. So the intensity of work, yeah, I would say is a lot. And it's kind of learning all your muscles, your bones. But I think if you do put a lot of work in first year, it kind of then second and third year is more like your placement. So it's more just applying all that knowledge. And then placements is kind of a different intensity, your Monday to Friday for kind of 8 weeks. Sometimes you have to travel because you don't always get placements in the area. So, I mean, you can be like, well, where Sheffield is, you can be Nottingham, Lincoln, you can have to travel quite far. So it's kind of a different kind of intensity. And then obviously you've got assignments and things. So I would say compared to other courses like that my other friends are on, it is intense. But it's kind of a different intense to what your A levels are, because it's kind of you're applying your learning in different ways, if that kind of makes sense.
Well, that's it. I mean, I know, my wife's an occupational therapist. We were chatting before, Anna, weren't we? And they work kind of quite closely with physios a lot of the time. And I know that, just working in the NHS is intense, isn't it? And I suppose, you, by going on placement, you get an idea of like, right, well, this is what my 9 to 5 is going to be like, when I get out into the world. So, the more experience, the better. Somebody did ask, actually, in terms of experience. I mean, obviously, COVID, and it's difficult for people, in fact, near on impossible for people to get work experience before they go onto a course or before they apply. What did you get much experience? How much kind of experience did you get? What did you do in terms of your application, in terms of experience, mate?
Yeah, so I was quite lucky. Obviously, it was pre-COVID times when I was doing my work experience. So I started off by just going to kind of like private practices. I mean, it depends on the area you live in, but near where I live, they were quite open to having me just for like 2 or 3 days. And that kind of it's easier to kind of get there because you don't have to do all the application processes. Well, I didn't. It obviously depends on the practice. And then often they have application forms through hospitals. So I know if you Google a hospital and then put like work experience, they often have like an online form to fill in at kind of big trusts, and you can just fill that in. And I would just say ask around. I know but even just asking people who know somebody who can kind of then ask somebody else to get you into hospitals. And I think at this point as well, any experience is experience. So even if it is just doing a bit of pitch side stuff, so if you know a local sports team, just asking them to come and volunteer on the side of a pitch. I know it's not NHS experience, but I think because of COVID and everything else, just any experience you can get is experience at the end of the day. And I'm sure it's something you can add to your personal statement and talk about in an interview. So I think they'll have to appreciate how difficult it is at the minute to get any kind of experience. So I would just say at the minute, just anything is better than nothing, I guess.
That's it. And I with obviously with the restrictions in place at the moment, like I say, it's impossible, like you said, isn't it? And I think even just researching online, there's bound to be some kind of like free webinars or stuff like that that are online that universities are doing as well. Hell, come in to watch you and listen to your advice and stuff like that. It's all research, isn't it? Exactly, I'm not sure anybody would actually write this down on their personal statement that he came to this, but hopefully they're finding it really, really useful. But there's always something you can do, like extra reading or something like that, because everyone's in the same boat with this, and unless they'd already got their work experience over a year ago or whatever, then the universities are going to have to look kindly on it. So just I'd say do reading and stuff like that. They're always on. I've got one more question from me, and I think it's going to cover a couple of questions that students have asked on YouTube. But then once I've asked this one, we'll do some quick fire questions from the YouTube chat, if that's all right with you, Anna.
Yeah, of course, that's fine.
Great. So we talked about how you got there. We talked about like what it's like at university and why you love Sheffield. Have you been to the snooker? Very quick question. You've been to watch the snooker?
No, I haven't.
See, I've always wanted to
I know so many people who come to Sheffield to watch it. I hear everyone's like, "Oh, Sheffield, I come to watch the snooker," but I haven't. No.
You're not as sad as me, but what can I say? We knew that anyway, right? So obviously graduation is going to roll around. I don't want to scare you, but that's going to roll around pretty quickly for you, isn't it? So 2-part question. So what would you say the main areas are that people will go into once they graduate physio, and where is it you think you want to be heading, or what area would you like to specialize in?
Yeah, so like I said before, obviously the easiest way to kind of think of it is like inpatient, outpatient, and then your community, because they're the kind of 3 main areas in the NHS. So in like your inpatient, you've got like respiratory wards. So at the minute, obviously it's mainly COVID, but you've got all kinds like your lung cancers, your asthmas in like pediatrics. And then obviously within that comes, like I said, you've got kids, adults, all kinds of different ages on different wards as well. And then your inpatients is also just general post-operations, your neuro. So you have a lot of Parkinson wards, stroke wards, a lot of stroke rehab. That's a big kind of area for physio, MS. So inpatients is just massive, and just kind of see that as like the inside of a hospital. Anybody that's staying in a hospital as a physio, you can work in that kind of area. And then you've got your outpatients, which is more like your MSK, so musculoskeletal. So your kind of like sports injuries, your general injuries, a lot of arthritis, shoulders, knees, hips. You kind of see it all, backs. So that's kind of people that would come into hospital just for their appointments, like their 1 hour time slot or half an hour time slot. And then you've got your community, where you go into people's houses. So you do a lot of home assessments, and like you said, Richard, you do a lot with the occupational therapists and nurses as well. You do like joint visits and things. So that's also a massive area, and all three of them are so broad, and they all change from kind of trust to trust, hospital to hospital. It's all different, but they're kind of like the main areas. And in university, you kind of do your CVR modules, so your respiratory and cardiovascular. You do your MSK, your musculoskeletal, and then you also do your neuro. So they're the three modules you cover as well. And then obviously, then you've got kind of, you can work anywhere. You've got your options to go abroad. You've got your sports side of physio, your football clubs, your rugby clubs. You've obviously got your private clinics. You've obviously got the NHS. It's just, the list could go on. I know a lot of physios now specialise. So they go on to do masters in like respiratory or sport, or and then you've got the options to do like your advanced practitioner now. I think that's like the kind of the one below a doctor, I'm pretty sure, kind of like an advanced nurse. And they're getting more physios in like GP practices. So the list could literally just go on and on. But just in summary, there's so many different areas. You can literally work anywhere in the UK, abroad. And for me, I kind of think I'll go and do my 2-year rotation. So when you finish university, you go in as a band 5, and you basically do 2 years where you just do all different areas. So you kind of do like 3 months in inpatients, 3 months in outpatients. You move around. And then after that 2 years, I'll hopefully have an area that I kind of really enjoy, which I'm hoping then to kind of specialise in. And alongside that 2 years, I'd like to kind of get some sport experience. Not sure which sport yet, maybe women's football, because that's where that's the sport that I play. And just get like as much experience as I can. I mean, I might go into the sporting industry and not enjoy it and end up going and doing something else. I just think because university just goes so fast, your 3 years just goes, and I think you still learn for like the rest of your degree. You can swap and change whenever you want. So but yeah, that's my plan at the minute, so we'll see.
That's amazing. So you can go anywhere and do anything.
Yeah, literally, that is it.
That's amazing. And I think, you know, I think when people go into healthcare degrees and stuff like that, they just assume it's like, oh, well, the NHS, that's where I'm going to end up. But, you know, like because it's accredited, because there's a national kind of accreditation to it, and it's recognized worldwide, I assume.
Yeah, I think so I know like America's slightly different because they call it physical therapy.
They
but
have
like
to,
Australia,
right?
your Australia, New Zealand, Canada, they all kind of view it as, I think you might have to do like a few extra exams, but you still got, like you said, you've still got the qualifications, go and practice over there. So I think Canada's a popular one. I know a lot of physio students go to Canada after, and Australia. Yeah, so
Brilliant.
There's a lot of options.
Yeah, that's it. Well, you know, like you say, during that rotation, once you've graduated, you know, you'll find your thing, won't you? You'll find your groove, and then you just got to.
Definitely, yeah.
But yeah, working in women's football, I mean, that's on the up as well, isn't it? Like massively. So more and more teams every year, you know, becoming professional. And obviously the States is massive for that too. So
yeah, and it's good, like with a sports team, you can also travel a lot as well. You can kind of, you travel with the teams weekends, and there's a lot of people that kind of work in the NHS Monday to Friday and then do their evenings and weekends with a sports team as well. It's kind of just finding what you enjoy and which area you kind of go into. But everyone I speak to who works, I think with physio, you kind of, the 2-year rotation, you learn so much because you think, oh, being on a respiratory ward isn't going to help me if I want to be in a sports team. But I've spoken to like physios that are in professional sports teams, and they say you know, like everything's important because you're respiratory, you treat somebody with asthma, and then you have a footballer who's got asthma. It's kind of all, it's all linked. And I think that 2-year rotation is so important. Even if you know your end goal is to go into sport, I think you just learn so much that will still link into your sport kind of end goal, because the NHS is so broad. You see everything there as well, don't you? So it's a really good foundation of knowledge to have.
Oh yeah, for sure. There's not much you're not working in the NHS for a couple of years.
Exactly.
Okay, so I have got a list of questions here that Rich Thompson has kindly kind of put together, and I think we've actually covered a lot of these. So if you don't mind, these will be a little bit kind of random and quick.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so one from Hannah. What's the hardest part of the degree, would you say?
I think probably the placements, just purely because it is just, you are kind of having a full-time job in a way, even though you are learning on it. It's tiring. It's Monday to Friday. You're kind of learning at the same time as working with other professionals. Like, you often have days with occupational therapists, nurses, doctors. So you're kind of like learning off everybody, and it's a lot of information to take in. So I'd say that's probably the most tiring. And then I'd probably say, like I said before, first year exams are quite difficult as well, just because it's all so new. But you do adapt to it, and you kind of enjoy it all at the same time in a weird kind of way. And you just, it's, you always, with a physio course as well, you can't not meet people, because your practical sessions, you're in small groups. So you're kind of just surrounded by physios who are all going through exactly the same thing as you. So you kind of just help each other out as well.
I think, you know, you can really tell, it really comes across that you love what you're doing, and you kind of, you're putting your heart and soul into it. It's what you want to do. And I think they always say, don't you, it's like, find a job that you love and you never have to work in a day in your life. And it's like,
yeah.
There are difficult days, and everyone has difficult days in whatever they do. But I think, you know, there are always going to be more difficult parts to it. But if you love it, then it doesn't matter that it's difficult. You know, you'll be tired at the end of it. So another one is, I'm not sure you know the answer to this one, but I'm going to give it a go anyway. Another one from Hannah, actually. She's received some offers for physio, but she's actually keen to defer till the start of 2022. For starting 2022. Yeah, so not this September, but the September after. How would she go about doing that? Do you know anything about deferments?
I don't know. Often it can give you the choice on your UCAS, I'm pretty sure, to defer. And if it doesn't, it might be a case of ringing up your university direct and maybe asking them. So there's often an admissions phone number. They're probably the best people to speak to. And it might be that they let you defer, or it might be that you might just have to reapply the following year. But it's probably worth, I would say, if there's not an option on your UCAS, just to probably ring up the admissions tutor. And sometimes there is a direct number for like a physio admissions tutor, or it might be like a healthcare admissions. So they'll definitely know the answer for you.
Good advice. I think that's something I'd say as well. If you're ever in doubt, and, you know, not everything's online, at the end of the day, the best thing you can ever do is speak to a human, and they'll give you a straight answer, right? So good advice. One just in from Jessica. I'm doing geography, economics, and biology. Do you think, though, with those subjects, do you think you could apply for physio? So geography, economics, and biology.
Yeah, I know. One of my housemates, actually, she did. I think it might have been maths, chemistry, but because she had biology, she was fine to apply. I think as long as you've got a science and or like PE counted. So I think as long as you've got biology, I think you should be fine. But again, if you go on the UCAS entry requirements, it normally has a list of like the relevant A levels that you need to have for the course. But off the top of my head, when I applied, I'm pretty sure just having biology alongside the other two was fine. But it might just be worth having another double check on UCAS, because sometimes it can vary between universities. I know some universities said you needed biology and didn't accept PE. So it kind of can change. So it's probably worth just having a look through UCAS. And again, if you need to ring somebody and just double check with them, I'm sure they'll know more. But I'm pretty sure just biology is fine with the other two as well.
Yeah, I think biology and PE are probably the big ones that it looks like.
Yeah, it was when I applied.
Biology, right?
Yeah, it was either biology or PE when I applied. So unless it's changed since then, I'm sure they'll be fine.
Yeah. Oh, good stuff. There you go. I'm going to be careful how I ask this one now, because considering the current situation. But how do you, from Hannah again, actually, how do you balance your degree with like joining societies, stroke going out? So let's not take anything from March into account. So pre-March, pre-COVID, how do you balance your studies and the kind of, let's say, student lifestyle? How do you find it?
Yeah, I think especially on a course like physio, they do massively encourage you to join sports teams, and they massively encourage you to do that, because that's also another way of really making friends and stuff. So I was in the university football team. I actually joined in second year, and I just kind of, I think it's just all time management. If I knew that I had football training on a Monday night, I'd make sure I had all my work done over the weekend and the Monday during the day. Obviously, it does become more difficult on placement because you are Monday to Friday, 9 till 5. But like I said, like you'll meet a lot of your friends. It depends on kind of what uni you go to, but a lot of your friends will also be physio and healthcare students, because you're in small groups. You would definitely find kind of at least one person in that group that you get on with. And you kind of do just a lot of my friends at university are physios, and I'm sure a lot of physios on my course would say the same thing, that you are surrounded a lot by other healthcare students. So you kind of like manage your social life around it. Like weekends, we'd always do something nice on a Saturday night, and Sundays we'd often go for walks in the peak. So we did use our weekends when we were on placement to make the most of that. But yeah, obviously compared to other courses, you do go out less in the week, just purely because you're up at 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, and your workload is probably more. So you do see a lot of people at university kind of partying every night, and you can't do that on a physio course as much, if I'm being completely honest. So obviously take that into consideration, but there's nothing to say that you can't join sports teams, societies, have nights out. It's just kind of balancing that with your work as well, that I think is just, it's all just time management. If you know you've got a night out on a Wednesday night, then just make sure you do your work on the Monday and Tuesday. It's just making sure you get it done, isn't it, alongside also doing the things you enjoy. But it's definitely doable.
Yeah, oh yeah, I mean, it has to be, doesn't it? And I think, for many people, like universities, they're kind of the first foray into real life almost. It's like, oh, hang on a minute. So I'm not dictated in terms of a timetable as much anymore. You get more work that's kind of like self-directed study almost. You go to a lecture, and it's not like, oh, that's everything in the world you need to know in that hour, that right there. It's kind of like you need to read around it, and you need to do some extra study outside. So it's balancing your own time and managing your own time. And I think in one respect, I don't know whether many students out there would agree with me right now, but in one respect, this kind of distance learning at A level is in some ways quite preparatory for university life, because A level students right now are having to manage their own time. Obviously, they're going to online lectures like you're doing and stuff like that, and online lessons. But other than that, they have to manage their own time, and it's difficult, right? I mean, but you do get into the groove. And like you say, I think the one mantra I would kind of say to anybody going to university is work hard, play hard. Enjoy what you can, but
exactly,
you're at the end of the day, aren't you? So
exactly.
Right, I think we'll do one more, mate, and we'll let you go. But I've got another question from another student, and I think it's your personal opinion here, Anna. Is it advisable taking a gap year considering the current situation? So I think on the back of the other question we had, so maybe deferring from September 21 to September 22 because they're worried. Do you think uni will be online next year again like it's been this year?
I think you will probably be okay, because physio is one of the courses that is face-to-face. I'm not sure whether that's across all universities, but at Sheffield Hallam, we're still going in for some face-to-face teaching because only certain courses are going back. So in that sense, I can't see why that would change in September. Obviously, it's hard to tell. The way things are going, it does look like it's getting better. But at the same time, there's nothing wrong with taking a gap year. Obviously, I took one, and I worked in that and saved some money and had some nice holidays and things. So there's also nothing to say that a gap year is the wrong decision to make either. I think probably just play the next months by ear. But I think by September, there will definitely be some face-to-face teaching on a physio course, and your placements will go ahead because you have to have your placements in your hours. So I think it'll probably be as normal as it ever can be. But obviously it's hard to kind of tell what it's going to be like in 6 months.
I know, right?
Yeah.
If we only had a crystal ball.
I know. It's a tough one to make, but I just think maybe leave it a few months, see how things are. But like I said, there's nothing wrong with taking a gap year either way, if that's something that you feel will benefit you more than a year's nothing really. By the time uni just literally goes, you think a year's a long time and it just comes and goes. So it doesn't mean a lot in the long run taking a year out.
No, that's a very good message, actually. I think, you just got to do what's right for you.
Mm-hmm.
And as you say, a year sounds like a long time, but it's really not. And if it
No.
gets you where you need to go, if it makes you feel more comfortable, like whatever it achieves, I think I would always say, like you said, you can, hopefully maybe do a bit of traveling, but, do something constructive with that year, one way or another, I think is rather than like, oh, what did you do for a year? Well, I quite enjoy loose women. I got into Countdown ready for university, because that's all students do, right? Is watch Countdown. But
yeah, it is worth saying that, actually, because when I had to obviously have all my interviews again after my gap year, and they did ask me in a lot of my interviews, well, what have you done with your past, with the last year? So it's worth saying that, actually. Yeah, you are probably better to do something productive, even if it is just kind of a bit of experience or something, just to mention, because they probably will want to know that you've, like you said, not just watched Countdown for a year.
I learned how to crochet. I can now tow a trailer with my car. Well, Anna, thank you so much for your insight into all this.
No problem.
It's been absolutely phenomenal. And can I thank you on behalf of the students and obviously on our behalf as well. So if you found any of this useful, guys, please make sure you give this video a like. And we're going to be back next week, where we will be talking to not one, not two, but 3 medicine students. So if you're a prospective medic, then come and join us same time next week. Anna, you just stay where you are. We're just going to say goodbye to everyone on YouTube, and we'll see you next